Well, welcome back. It's Reggie Mara here speaking about healing America's narratives, dealing with Chapter 7 still, the post 9/11 wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And specifically, we're dealing with Iraq today. And just to begin with, as early as November 27th, 2001, according to General Tommy Franks and Andrew Bacevich, whose book, America's War for the Greater Middle East, captures a sweeping view of the history of the United States in the Middle East, that Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, had told General Franks as early as November 2001 to begin gearing up for a war in Iraq, even though two sets of weapons inspectors had found no weapons of mass destruction in that country. Bacevich, in his book, America's War for the Greater Middle East, is really clear on his assessment of the ambitions that the Bush administration, motivated by the Project for the New American Century, had for Iraq. And specifically, he spoke about the desire or the need, perhaps, to establish the efficacy of preventive war. A second one is the prerogative of removing regimes that Washington didn't like. And the third was to reverse the practice of exempting the Islamic world from neoliberal standards. So said differently, to summarize those three, first, the United States and only the United States could start wars in order to prevent wars. They could remove foreign sovereign governments through various means, and they could impose Western values on Islamic countries and peoples that were not keeping up with U.S. standards and desires for the world at large. Now, those three goals or ambitions are very interesting when held in juxtaposition with President Eisenhower's post-World War II precepts and even Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara's lessons learned after the Vietnam War. So what we're speaking about here is, again, in the context of healing America's narratives and the shadow, the collective shadow of the country that's in evidence throughout the history that embodies these traits of ignorance, arrogance, violence, bigotry, fear, greed, untrustworthiness, etc., that the Bush administration in this case, and not just the Bush administration historically, and not just the Republican administrations historically, but that's what we're speaking about right now, seemed not to have learned anything, or perhaps wasn't aware of what President Eisenhower and Secretary of Defense McNamara had learned through their respective experiences in World War II and Vietnam. So we'll pick up with this in the next episode. Thank you for tuning in.